Just today, Microsoft opened their XCloud program to the public. Now, in a nutshell, that lets any Xbox Game Pass subscriber play any Xbox Game Pass game streamed through their web browser. So you can do that on a PC, you can do it on a laptop, you can do it on an iPhone, which is pretty cool. But when I heard about that, I basically had one question, and that is, can it do racing games? And tonight, that's what we're going to find out. Alright, so this is Forza Horizon 4 in my web browser via XCloud versus 1080p footage recorded directly from my Xbox One S. As we look at the title screen here, you'll notice already that there's definitely a drop in video quality, which is to be expected, but it is serviceable. Over on the XCloud side, it's maybe equivalent to like a YouTube video that's at medium quality, like maybe between 480 and 720p. It's workable, you know, you're not going to be missing any important details on the screen here. And the desktop that I'm running this on is not high-end at all. It's like an HP mini desktop, and it probably would not run Forza Horizon 4 at all if it weren't using this cloud system, so that's nice. Whatever server farm that they use to pull this off is running some kind of Xbox Series X hardware emulation, so you might be able to even get some features out of the games that you wouldn't be able to get on a regular Xbox One. Now I'm running two of the same event in the same car, 99 Civic Type R, and we're gonna go ahead and compare what the footage looks like, how I perform, what my final time is going to be, and spoilers, the native Xbox One is going to be better, because obviously. I don't know how much this comes through in the footage, but there is noticeable delay on the XCloud inputs. It's to be expected. It's actually better than I expected it to be, but it is going to give you a trickier time in racing games. You have to anticipate for that. Pretty much every turn I'm initiating on the XCloud version is going to be maybe a tenth of a second slower than it is in the native hardware. I chose the Civic for this event because that's really going to give it the best ability to shine. If you're going to hop into a very, very fast car, you're going to have less time to react, and the delay is really going to mess you up pretty much immediately. Also, your performance here is very much going to be dependent on internet speed fluctuations, which are going to go up and down. The picture quality will go up and down, which is fine, but most importantly, the delay is going to become better or worse. To try and measure the actual amount of latency coming out of this thing, I've devised a little test where basically I'm just going to hit the left trigger on the controller here, which is the brake, of course, and then measure the amount of frames that it takes for the brake light to come onto the screen. Which the delay for the most part was consistent at about 1/10 of a second, but in the worst case I would find is that the video feed would freeze completely, which when that happens, the game itself is not freezing, it's only your video feed of the game, which means that the game is still continuing on, which means that basically you'll teleport into a tree, with no recourse against that. So that's very, very bad mark against XCloud in my opinion. It's also worth mentioning that I don't have very fast internet. I got about 120 megabit on a really good day. So if you have 200 megabit or higher, you're probably going to have a much easier time with this. The advertised performance on this was like up to 1080 and up to 60 frames per second, which I am not getting anywhere near with my internet speed, but it would be interesting to see what people can get out of it with a much faster bitrate. Overall, I finished my race in the XCloud version in 6th place with a time of 3 minutes and 13 seconds, .928, so let's call that 3:14. And on the Xbox One version, I finished in 1st place with a time of 3 minutes 5 seconds, .786. So as you can see, that's really quite a large gap between these two versions. And, you know, the faster car you hop into, the bigger discrepancy you're gonna get. So maybe if you were in really, really slow cars, you could get closer to the same amount of time. But what's the fun in that? Overall, I would say, you know, this thing really isn't a good fit for racing games, and Microsoft would probably tell you that themselves. But it was an interesting, you know, fun little thing to try. I also played a little bit of Doom on this, and you could definitely feel the delay on that too. Not the best for racing games, not the best for shooters, but if you're looking into something more casual, with less reaction time involved, it would probably suit you just fine. Technology-wise, it's not quite there yet, but it's closer than I thought it would be. So that's something, and in a couple years from now, they may even get close enough to zero latency that you can predictably drive fast cars around with this thing, and it's not going to be completely unnatural. Really, I think the best thing about this service right now is that it's available on just a regular web browser, which is really impressive. You don't have to download anything at all. And when I logged into it, I was half expecting something to go wrong and it just would not load properly. But when I actually went in, waited a minute or two, and I was in the game, and I was like, wow, I can hardly believe this. Which, you know, it still has some drawbacks. But mostly I think this service would be great for people who have Game Pass already and go, okay, I want to try out a new game. I don't really want to wait, you know, 1, 2, 3 hours, maybe even more for a bigger game for this thing to download. But I just want to try it out, see how I like it. And you can just pop into the game in a matter of minutes, you're playing, and that can give you, you know, a little bit of an impression, which you can then go and download later and get the full experience. You do have a little bit of mobility with this service too, because you can just take it to a place with decent Wi-Fi, boot up your phone, connect a controller to it, and you're playing. Really, the biggest issue I had is just that the game would freeze and buffer for a couple seconds, but the game itself would not freeze. So really, if they can implement a feature to where when the video feed freezes, the game also freezes, that would be a massive, like, boon in its favor, I think. So conclusion, you know, this service just released to everybody a few hours ago. I imagine the servers of this thing are probably getting hit pretty hard at this point, but I had a serviceable time with it. And let me know what your XCloud experience was. Maybe you have fantastic fiber optic internet and it was like buttery smooth for you. Or maybe you have, you know, terrible satellite internet over in the woods in Wyoming and you couldn't get it to work at all. But either way, it'd be interesting to see the variety of experiences with this thing.